How would you describe yourself?
Oh, um, I think I'm a good person. I think I'm a good father and a good grandfather. Try hard. I do my best. I do my best. Try to have honour and integrity at all times.
And that's your core of your being. It's Craig
That's
Tuhoro.
what I try to do. Yeah.
So, how did you get into business?
Well, how did I get into business? That's an interesting question. Well, I don't know really. It's just like this business. I grew up around this business, so I guess it just comes back to
So, what kind of business is this at the moment?
it's a trading, processing, recycling business. By looking after people, I think running businesses sort of comes back to some form of leadership, taking responsibility for others, helping and guide other people. Yeah, it's an interesting thing. Sometimes you wonder why you do it.
But do you feel impelled to be a leader? You feel that's in you? You've always wanted to lead?
Well, I don't know whether I've always wanted to lead. It's just sort of always kind of been part of the deal, right? You know, when you're with all your mates, you know, you as a pack, you sort of divide up what everyone's going to be doing amongst that pack, and our family's no different to other families, and I kind of try to keep everyone moving forwards safely is really what we try to do, make a dollar, um, pay our bills, try to keep everybody employed. That's pretty much it, yeah.
What makes a good leader?
I don't know, I think that's a very political topic. I think there's a lot of people that throw that word around but probably don't show the characteristics of a true leader. You know, people who don't put themselves first and things like that. You know, there's a lot of people that use that word, talk about that word a lot, but don't really show those characteristics, right? Leadership isn't just about you, it's about others. And I think that's probably one of the hardest things about leadership is probably not putting yourself first sometimes, not being selfish, because that's quite easy to do.
On that subject of leadership, what do you think of the nation's current leadership?
Um, Look, shit, if I was to go back over the last, I was involved in the Trade for All board under Labour and New Zealand First. I'm kind of a conservative person with a social conscience. I'm half Māori, half English and Scottish, so you know I'm kind of in the middle, and I I don't I don't probably sit here and speak for other Māori. I speak for myself. I have my own opinion on Māoridom and what we do. With regards to the leadership of the country, I think that's quite difficult, right? Because you're there and you're voted in, so you're selling a path for people to vote you in. And if you're voted in, you should enact what you promised, in my view. You know, so I just think it's quite difficult because we've got mixed member proportional sort of voting. It makes it very, very difficult. And I believe if we vote our leaders in, they need to have control to be able to implement what they need to do. And if they don't do what they promise, then you vote them out. So I think it's easy to point the finger at people historically. Um, but I also think that obviously there's two paths, right? That we've got a very strong Labour crew and more left-leaning, socialism-leaning, and then we've got National and ACT. And, you know, I kind of sit right in the middle, in my view. So I can sort of lean on either way, but for me there has to be common sense. So I probably sit with about 60 to 70% of all other New Zealanders right in the middle, to be fair.
Do we have a government of common sense at the moment?
I think I think they're doing reasonable stuff, but it's taking too long to sort. So they're not moving fast enough.
Okay, well, that's interesting. So, as you say, if the government's not doing their job, we vote them out. So we have one of the shortest terms in the Western world, 3 years.
Yeah,
And in many ways, it's like a referendum.
correct.
If you're not doing a great job in 3 years, you're out and we replace you. And of course, the conversation at the moment is, shall we extend that term, make it 4 years? What do you think about that?
I think 3 years isn't enough to implement any or fix any problems. I think it should be 5, personally.
But if they're doing a decent job, they get another 3 and they're in for 6.
Yeah, but I think I personally, I think you need 5 years. I also think that we've got an issue in our local government issue. Central government, I think everyone focuses on, but local government, I don't think we pay enough attention to, and I think that's where a lot of our issues are. Personally, now that I've obviously been involved with some of this consent stuff in local government, I'm sort of watching what's going on, and I think politically, as long as everyone's able to live affordably, then there's some success there for the government, whether they're Labour or National or whatever else. I think history shows us that if we don't have a strong middle class, then the poor will eat the rich. It's happened time and time again historically, and I think we're getting to bumpy moments where, there's just the wealth for the wealthy is becoming extreme wealth, and I think that that just gets a little bit dangerous for everybody when people are struggling, and I really think it's getting quite difficult. So, I really worry about that sort of stuff. What is success? I mean, I would say that anyone that says that they've been successful in the last 2 years is probably a unicorn. I think the last 2 years has been quite difficult. And I grew up in a very poor home with 5 siblings and a mother. Basically, my father was sort of out on the road working, never really had a lot, so don't kind of feel like I need a lot either. But I think a lot of common sense. I worry about failures, just like most people. No one wants to fail. I'd like more. I don't know anybody that doesn't want more, but yeah, look, I think New Zealand is small. It's really hard to get ahead here, and the reality of it is that it's not simple. It's difficult. So I think this business has been going 15 years now. I'd probably make more money just working for somebody else outside of New Zealand, to be honest with you.
Do you consider yourself successful?
No, not really.
Why?
Oh well, I probably find myself to be a bit of a victim sometimes. Just from it's hard when you're looking after a lot of people. It's not easy, right? So it'd be much easier for me just to go work for large corporates and work outside of New Zealand and make better money and not focus on the business and the staff and their families, right? It's much easier to do that. It's harder doing what we do.
But you've had that opportunity before and you walked away from it to do this, to start this business.
It's true. Yeah, that is
So
true.
that's a contradiction there, isn't it?
Well, yeah, it's the other side of the coin, right? So I know both sides of the coin. So yeah, it's interesting. I'm sure that in the next couple of years we'll see what happens.
So what's your guiding principle then? Why I mean, you say that sometimes you think, well, that'd be easier to walk away and work for somebody else and get a big paycheck. And you did have that for a while, but you chose this instead. So why did you choose this?
I don't know. At the time, it was what I needed to do, what I wanted to do, because I had family members that didn't have jobs. So I created jobs for them, and then you get tied to it, right? So there wasn't really a plan to grow something like what we have. But yeah, look, I love coming to work. It's not Like, I don't like what I do, but it's probably not the smartest thing I've ever done. It's probably more that's probably more the story, right?
But you still feel passion for what you do.
Absolutely, I love what I do. I love what I do.
Getting back to local government, you came up with this idea of a waste to energy plant for the E.P.A.
Yep.
And, well, and of course you deal with local government all the time with consents for your three, Global Metal Solutions is your business, and you've got a depot in Auckland, Hamilton, depots in Auckland, Hamilton, and New Plymouth. So, you're working with local council all the time. So what's good about local council and what's bad about local council?
Getting myself in trouble here. Look, we need councils. I believe the R.M.A is what we need. I think this idea of fast track is probably just a political spin around the same thing because the rules are the same. So they haven't changed the rules. They're just trying to speed it up. I don't see the councils as being the issue. My view is that the R.M.A is needed. We shouldn't be doing things outside the R.M.A. The problem we have is holding people accountable for the costs that are incurred under the R.M.A. So we've wrapped these laws around the councils to protect them because they weren't always the elites there and all the rest of it. But what I've seen in the councils and in local and central government is that we've got a lot of intelligent people who, since probably prior to COVID, since COVID, have attached themselves to these councils with extreme flexibility, living in very nice homes by lakes and outside of the main centres, but who are attached to these councils, district, regional councils, and these are educated people, these are planners, and we've wrapped these laws around these councils, and what's happened, and I think it's happened to the health system as well, is that we have allowed these people to attach themselves to these councils, do the work for these councils, but extricate themselves, not with employment contracts, but with contractor agreements. And the council people themselves are not capable of managing these people. And that's where the costs are blowing out. I've seen it in the OIA documents that we've seen, that these people agree to costs and then start dragging them out. And that's the problem.
Are you saying that this consultancy process that the council's involved with is a bit of a rort?
We've wrapped laws around these councils to protect council employees from predatory behaviour from industrialists, right? Big industrial firms like Fonterra. Unfortunately, Fonterra have more people working for them than most councils, but not every industrial business has that sort of capability. What I've personally seen is that the people that are attached to these councils, relying on the law wrapped around them, the people who run these councils or provide the secretary services for these consultants that then do the work for the R.M.A, aren't really capable of holding these smart individuals accountable. So we see, for instance, in Paewira, we see forecasts that are issued on the work. They offer the work out to the consultants. The consultants agree to do the work for this price. And then they can't get it done. And then they ask for variations. And these variations are given without discussion with the applicant.
So the applicant is paying for these?
And unfortunately, these council people do not know how to hold these people accountable who are supporting them. And that's where your costs get extended. Now, one of these laws is you have to put these things in dispute within 14 days, but you don't get these invoices for 30. So by the time they go through the council, they're already past 14 days. My view is, to everybody doing a consent, is that you hold them accountable, that all invoices, until you've seen them and agree with them, should be held in dispute. That's my advice to everybody. Because the contractors or subcontractors who attach themselves to these councils need to be held accountable. And that's where the cost blowouts are for local and central government.
If you could change things, if you could change something about this process, the way that councils operate, what would you do to change it?
Give the mayors that are voted in full control. The ability to sack, hire and fire as they need to. They're voted in there by the people, but unfortunately they don't have control over the staff and the admin, right? So they don't really have a lot of control. And unfortunately they should have control. But once again, these laws have been wrapped around to protect themselves, but we still vote people in, but they aren't capable of, they don't have the law or the ability to run. I mean, right now, Donald Trump's running America, no one's happy, but he's entitled to do that, right? He gets to hire and fire, do whatever he wants. So he lives or dies on what he does while he's in that office. Whereas our people get voted into mayor and they're reliant on 12 councillors. You try to get 12 people to agree. You know, it's not simple. And if you can't get 12 people to agree, how can you get things done?
What do you think then about the role of the CEO, a council CEO?
Well, he's probably stronger than the mayor, but he's not voted in. So why are we doing that? You have to ask the question. Those councils, you know, are a little bit out of control and they have a lot of power, and it worries me. It worries me. I've seen some pretty, what I would call bad behaviour, you know, and I think it needs to be looked at.
So you're saying that the playing field is not level for everyone?
No, it's not. My view.
What do you like about the R.M.A?
I think it's important that I think the R.M.A was, when I look at it, it's good. The ideas are good. The 90-day term is good, but how often does the consent happen in 90 days? Everyone should go and ask AI how long is the consent? New Zealand Invest are currently sort of suggesting that for any outside investors in an industrial process, the cost is going to be somewhere between 5 and 7 million, and 1.5 to 2.5 years. That's the guideline given, but the R.M.A process should be 90 days. So it makes it hard for New Zealand to actually move forward and get things done.
So the Resource Management Act is intended to look after our environment,
Yeah.
and make sure that our resources are being used in a way that protects the environment. Do you think it's working? Are we looking after our environment in New Zealand?
No, I don't think so. I think the Paewira thing is a great example of how we're not looking after the environment. I mean, to be fair, I should have known this before I went into this, but when we attach, this is a good example of money driving behaviour. We set up the landfills. We then put a levy on the landfills. We then say to the councils, for your admin process and part of the R.M.A, 50% of that levy can go to you, both regional and district, and then 50% can go to the Waste Minimisation Fund to help divert or provide recycling services for landfill. But what happens then is that all that whole funding pulls up and builds, and then when we try to move them away from landfill, what do we get? We get opposition, we get people, we get conflicts.
So we have the way the landfill financing is structured, it creates dependency?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. Yeah, I think that's the problem with the Paewira project, and it's the problem with the behaviour around the councils. I think AI also in the last sort of 18 months has made a lot of the planners and council people quite frightened. And this whole zero waste concept around diversion from landfill is, if you understand the waste system, it's been going for so long, but it just doesn't work. You know, so I don't understand their behaviour, but I do understand people's reliance on money. So yeah, I sort of see that for what it is, but it's not really. It's hard because what we want to do is we want to take people away from landfills. We want to start remediating landfills because the ground is what we have. And if we're poisoning the ground, how are we helping the environment?
Zero waste is funded by government, and the idea of zero waste is that we reduce our waste to the point where we don't have any waste at all.
Yeah,
We recycle everything.
that's the idea.
It's a great idea.
It's a great idea. Hasn't worked. Hasn't worked.
Why hasn't it worked?
Ooh, probably because we don't want to pay for things to work.
Is zero waste an idea that can we actually make all the waste in New Zealand zero waste?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so.
Why is that?
It's just not possible to unmix things once they've been mixed, and that's half the problem. It's kind of our whole system is set up a certain way.
So what do you mean by...
The reuse recycle part is fine, but with so many people on the planet, you get 7 to 8 billion people on the planet now, I don't think it's possible. I don't think it's possible to get back to zero waste. I mean, I think we recycle less than 30% within New Zealand. And, if you were to, most people would consider us being intelligent, up there with the top countries, right, with regards to democracy and all the rest of it.
And clean and green.
And clean and green. But the reality of it is that we're not capable of recycling beyond 30%, in my view.
So what happens when things are mixed? What do you mean by that?
Oh, it's the cost of labour here is at a certain level that once things are mixed, unless you can separate them, then they're too expensive to be unmixed.
So you mean waste is put onto a conveyor belt and you have somebody standing there pulling out the recyclables?
Well, not only that, it's certain things can't be unmixed, like, plastics. Most humans can't identify the difference in the plastics and things like that. I think there is some, there's some plants that can sort certain things, but once they're mixed, like the simple stuff, Coke bottles, we can sort that, So there are certain things that we can sort. Old corrugated cardboard, mixed paper, PET, HDPE, the simple milk bottle stuff. The mixed HDPE is a little bit different, which is the cleaning products and things like that. But once they are mixed, or they've gone beyond those transfer stations where they can no longer be separated, then the cost is just too high to unseparate and then recycle, which is where you get into the landfill and the waste energy space.
Let's talk about Paewira.
Yeah, for me, as I've always said, it was about creating employment and building something, right? Landfills, not everyone can go out and start a landfill. I mean, the investment cost is probably 10% of what the investment is for a waste energy plant, but it just seemed to me to be common sense. So, and we're already creating a certain amount of waste per day with the gear that we have, and we're more than happy to work with the landfill guys. But when there's a better option that can provide revenue and further employment and is better for the environment, why would we not grab that and move forward with it?
Well,
so simple.
In theory, it sounds like a great idea.
Yeah.
But it hasn't been received like that. It's been incredibly controversial. Somebody who lives in the E.P.A, it's a dirty word.
Well,
and any mention of it, people start to get angry straight away. And you see cars driving around town with stickers on them going, Paewira is the devil.
I've seen a bit of that. But, to be honest with you, I'm in Tiamat all the time. I don't see any bad behaviour around me. You can position something and make it either edible or non-edible depending who you are, and I think this has become a bit of a marketing tool for certain elements of people who are driving sort of political unhappiness around the place. I don't see it as being, there's two waste systems, no, there's three already in Te Awamutu. You know, if you were to remove those 3 transfer stations and put the waste energy plant in, Te Awamutu would improve. You know, but when you've got people selling things to people on the basis that it's no good and it's harmful, all the rest of it, you know, I don't sort of worry too much about what those people are being told. It's, you know, they don't know. They don't understand, so it's not really worth getting too excited about. But the people who are involved with the councils, they know, they understand. So I hold them accountable. You know, and these are the people that have been involved in invoicing and dragging out costs, and you know, we sat in with both of those councils for almost 4 years. Then we were kicked up to the E.P.A, you know, and then we see this process being reciprocated again. You know, so you have to start asking the question, why? You know, why did that happen? And you know, why are we being charged again? And when the R.M.A states quite clearly you can only be charged once. So, you know, but then you see that these councils and these consultants are driven by hourly rates, and part of that hourly rate for both of these councils comes from waste levies. So, you know, they've got a definite opinion around it, and there was a struggle during the hearing just getting the mayor to even admit that she was part of a 7 sub-council waste group that was paid for by waste levy fees. Just getting her to admit that was a problem, you know. So, you know, I know that the councils get money from waste levies, but getting her to admit it was a major issue. So if we're not prepared to tell the truth, why are we running councils?
Was there an element of councils kowtowing to the fear that was being driven by certain people?
Possibly, you know. I think everyone wants to be re-elected and all the rest of that, but what fear? If you look at the pro waste energy people, there's no fear. There's 3,500 plants around the world. They're great. People who have seen them understand that. But majority of people don't leave New Zealand. Majority of people don't leave Te Awamutu. We don't see what's happening out there, so we generally tend to listen to what's going on our phones. So, you know, I just, you know, I think some of these people, you know, just need to do a bit of research and get out there and understand things.
6 years ago, you had a vision
Yep.
about improving our environmental footprint in New Zealand, turning our considerable non-recyclable waste into a resource. You thought you could do something really positive for the country. You've spent a lot of money, you spent a lot of time, and looking back, would you do it again?
Oh, I'd probably do it a little bit different. I think I've learnt a little bit. You haven't asked me the main question though. You haven't asked me about the E.P.A. What's happening with the E.P.A.?
Getting to that.
Oh, you're getting to it? Okay, well, let's deal with this one. Would I do it again? Yeah, I probably would, but I'd do it different because I know better now.
What have you learnt from the process?
Well, I didn't understand that the councils were conflicted from day one. I wasted my time talking to both the WRC and the WDC because they were conflicted. They had my view is they had no intention of ever. Basically, they were playing with us, while at the same time, the Waikato District Council and the Waikato Regional Council issued another Class 1 landfill at Pukemetal, right? That landfill with 16 million tonnes will provide $450 million to both of those councils. That disturbs me because we already had 2 landfills. We have Hampton Downs and we had Redvale. Why did we need another one in Huntley? You know, we didn't, but that was what they chose. So while they're saying they can't help me, or that we're being dragged out over years and years and years, ticking boxes left, right and centre, another landfill was granted without any without any public knowledge and without any iwi consultant for that project. So, I found that a little bit disturbing, the way that we were being manhandled and that they allowed that other consent to go through. That was probably one of the most disturbing things.
Hey, were you naive?
Well, there's probably, a little bit naive, yeah. It's probably a fair comment. Yeah, I expect people to be probably upfront and honest. Is that naive? To expect that from our councils?
So you're waiting for a decision now, aren't you?
Yeah.
This is the big question. Is it going to happen or is it not going to happen?
Well, in the hearing, all the conditions were agreed. We paid a certain amount of money monthly to the E.P.A, but basically the costs blew out.
So this has been in the news. This has been,
Yeah.
Well, some media have been trying to turn it into a controversy and saying that you're not paying the fees.
Well, we've stopped paying. When they paused it, we stopped paying. Up until then, we were paying a certain amount per month. They found out when we found out. It was paused. So the costs have blown out 3 or 4 times what the original forecast was. So it's nothing that about $1.5 million can't fix. Do I believe it's probably could be granted? Yeah, but it's cut us off from our funding also. So we've got to work out at this point, do we bring in another partner? I've had updates from the E.P.A. We've sourced a lot of information and the E.P.A. has informed us that we could have an answer within 7 to 10 working days if we clear the bills. And that there will be another probably $100,000 to $150,000 on top more. So
that's the problem for you at the moment, is that you have this big amount of money you've got to pay and it's just too much.
well, it is what it is. My view is the reason why it's blowing out is because the E.P.A, I think they've done a reasonable job, to be honest with you. We saw, you remember when I said to you that the R.M.A, you can technically only be charged once. So we saw both regional and district councils sending our information to the E.P.A and charging for it. So we've since had all the information sent to us. We think that is a point of contention. And we've seen also every contractor on the E.P.A side agreed a certain pricing, and that's all blown out. So there were variations granted to their contracts without us having a say. Once again, I think that's a point of contention for us.
So the problem isn't that you don't have the money to pay it. The problem is that you feel that you weren't consulted about the money that was spent on your behalf and charged to you.
It's a bit of both. Like, regardless, we've run out of money currently because you've got to make money to spend it, and it's the business, the Global Contracting Solutions is not a revenue business, it's a project. So it's been a project that we've paid for with my personal money and one of my partner's personal money for 5 years. And we've spent a lot of money. So if we want to carry on, we've got to bring in another partner, or we're actually in the middle of offering to about 6 or 7 possible partners a shareholding to clear the invoices and get this through. So it's difficult. It's not easy.
Okay, one final question before we move on. If you paid the money, 10 days' time, what do you think the decision would be?
There's no reason for it not to be granted.
But you were talking about lack of iwi consultancy for the new landfill that's over west of Huntly.
Yep.
Maoridom, iwi. Should iwi be having a voice in these things?
Yes, I think so. I think, but it needs to be funded. I think, and this is where the problem is that a lot of the small hapus and stuff, or the small groups, are struggling to fund, and they can't compete with the large consultancies that are attached to the councils, and the councils tend to decide if there needs to be iwi consultation or not. I believe part of the R.M.A, the iwis need to be consulted about every project.
Why is iwi consultation important?
Well, I think that they're the indigenous people, and they should have a say. And also, I think about the environment. I think they're totally driven by the environment, to be honest with you. But at the moment, from what I've seen, councils only bring iwi in when it suits them. If they want to slow something down, this is my view. I could be wrong. If they want to slow something down, if they want to put you through the roller coaster ride, add to your costs, then you get that the council will request it. I believe though that the iwi should be consulted about, and it should be funded, and it needs to be have good conditions wrapped around it, so that iwi can afford to do this job and they can do it efficiently with accountability. And I think it would be good, because I think, it just gives. I think it would, pulling it away from the council's responsibility, I think, would put a bit more responsibility on the iwis to hold the councils accountable. With regards to the iwi consultations around the R.M.A, I think they should be, every consent should have its own separate iwi consultation, and needs to be funded.
You're often identified as a Maori businessman.
Yes.
Do you see yourself as a Maori businessman?
I think I see myself as a Maori, but more Polynesian. I see myself as part of a wider group. Because I don't kōrero te reo, I think that there's a younger crew that are coming through now that probably feel that if you don't speak Māori, you're not as Māori as others. I don't see that at all. I think that I probably identify more as Polynesian because I'm from the Pacific. So I kind of identify with the Fijians and the Samoans and the Tongans and the Cook Islanders, because I don't see us as being really very different. So I don't kind of see myself as just being Māori. Obviously my mother was Pākehā. But yeah, it's unfortunate. We grew up in a time where the language wasn't really encouraged at school. So I'm once again over 50. I think that some of the younger ones today have had the benefit of the language, which would be nice, but I don't share that benefit. So, I probably don't think the same way they do.
New Zealand Steel.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about the relationship you've had with New Zealand Steel, and the new relationship that's about the new era that's about to start.
Mm-hmm. It's an environmental change. So they're going from creating steel from minerals from the ground, which were also taken from iwi, which was iron sand, both from Maniapoto and in Port Waikato. Coal and lime. They were creating iron, then turning it into steel. They're going to a 60% EAF process with one of the best furnaces in the world, Danieli. And
so what does that process mean?
So they're going to be, it's a unique process that they're building. It's bespoke. So what they're going to be doing is using about 450,000 tonnes that will be coming out of the North Island that would normally be exported in containers around the world to be recycled, will now be recycled within New Zealand.
And this is your core business, is metal recycling.
Yes, it is.
So how is that going to affect you? So at the moment, I mean, that's what you do at the moment. You recover metals,
Yep.
All kinds of metals, and then you put them into containers, and we're talking everything from aluminium cans right through to hard steel, and then you send it overseas.
Yep.
And that's a big cost, isn't it? Because you've got to ship things everywhere.
I think it's the cost is similar because the model is cost related, but it's better for the environment what they're doing. So they're going to be making a greener type of product because there's less transport around the world, better for the environment, good for New Zealand, and we're fortunate enough to 2.5 years ago to be in the conversation around who would be the suppliers. So there's two suppliers, Sims Metals, who are the largest public company in the world involved in scrap metal, and Global Metal Solutions was the second partner that was agreed. So that we're lucky to be part of that crew.
So this is a really big deal for you.
Yeah, it's a big deal. Big for the company and big for the staff and big for the future.
Is it going to allow you to expand?
I think so, yeah. I think it's going to allow us to be safe for the future, and the investment that we've put in will be realised. I think.
So what kind of investment have you had to do to make sure the product that you'll be supplying to this new furnace at New Zealand Steel is up to standard?
Where you have to get up to international specifications and be big enough and to be able to handle the full range, which we've proven. We've got a lot of experience, and I think that was another reason. Probably being Māori also. I think one of the few Māori exporters in the business. I think that was, I won't say that it wasn't part of their thinking, but I'm grateful for that. I would say also that we probably employ, I'd say 70% Polynesian, and somewhere around 40% females. So, yeah, look, I think it's a big part of our future, and I'm very proud to be part of it.
You are a recycling business.
Yep.
But what you really are is you're a commodity trader. How do you run a business that's a trading business? It sounds complicated.
So the commodities that we trade are semi-precious, not precious. Precious metals are different: gold, silver, all the rest of it, currency. We're basically buying and selling things, but not over the counter, through containers. So the system is already set up. There's an international logistics system that's tied to an international financial system. And then there's indices that pretty much we know daily that gives you values. And you basically, once you've got enough for a container, you agree the value based on that container and you find the correct buyer. Over a period of time, you understand the quality control and the people that you want to work with, and then you sort of form communities. It's interesting and it's fun. It really is. It really is.
Now you said to me a while back, and this is relevant to this, what you just said, that people deal with you because they trust you.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's no different to, when you go choose which pub you're going to go and have a beer with or a meal at, right? You spend your money where you want to be. And people who buy and sell scrap do the same thing. We work with people who we want to work with. Sometimes you have to work with people you don't like. You don't have to love everybody to work with them, right? But at the same time, as long as they've got honesty and integrity and there's no lack of trust, why wouldn't you give them a shot, We're not looking to reinvent the wheel. Just keep the wheel rolling.
What's the waste system going to look like in 20 years' time?
We'll be digging up every old landfill that we've had, and we'll be remediating it all and then turning that into usable land. That's the reality of the future.
How many waste-to-energy plants would this country need?
3 or 4 max. I would say probably 2 Central North Island and 1 on the South Island. I don't think we need to overdo it. They have a 25-year shelf life, and they can be continually upgraded. So we're talking basically concreted steel. The rest of it's basically a machine. As long as the environmental controls are there, and we all know where the digital side of the world is headed with AI and all the rest of it, carbon capture, I think the days of putting things in the ground without knowing what's going on are history. It's just a matter of getting our system to catch up with where we need to go.
So you're saying, 1 in Auckland, 1 in the lower North Island, 2 in the central North Island, and 1 in the South Island?
No, I would say probably, we're looking at a site in Auckland as well, for a bigger, more heavily industrial site. There's about 7,000 tonnes in the central North Island that go to landfill every day. My view is that landfills will live longer. there'll be more tons, but there'll be more recycling. I think the waste to energy plants, I would say probably two, maybe one in Te Awamutu, the one that we're building there, probably a bigger one in Auckland, and then one in the South Island, probably Christchurch, I would suggest. And then from there you would probably build some, what they would call RDF plants, to support those. So where you can actually take remediated landfill product to be separated and packaged, so that you plant in front of Paewira, for instance, shredding and sorting, you can build an RDF plant without having a waste to energy station
So
attached.
what is RDF?
Refuse derived fuel. So basically you take mixed waste and you sort it, and then you have the product for the waste to energy, and then the rest of it would be recyclable or reusable, and then you'd have your clean fill. So you dig up all of the old landfills, so you don't have to have a waste to energy plant everywhere, you can have an RDF plant somewhere. I think that's the future. I don't think, maybe 3, maybe 4 max within New Zealand, but anything more than that, then we're just burning things for the sake of burning it.
Okay, there's 2 points that I just want to, I want you to talk about here. So, one of the misconceptions that I've been aware of about waste to energy plants is that you burn everything, but what you're saying is there's a strong element of recycling involved in it as well.
Yeah, it depends on how the plant's designed. You know, if you don't want to be creating a hell of a lot of ash, or when you burn something, it's to do with the water content or the moisture and the fuel, right? So the more you process the fuel and you make it uniform, the better the process on the incineration side and on the environmental side.
So you're not just chucking everything into the incinerator bin.
No. No, Paewira itself it's got a high entry door, fast entry door, so we can put stuff straight through if it doesn't need processing. But generally, you want to shred it. You want to shred it down to a size, and then you want to sort from there anything that's not incineratable. You know, you want to separate stuff. So when they say RDF, what they're calling about is refuse derived fuel. So they've been building RDF plants in Southeast Asia for a while now, and what they're doing is they're getting everybody separating and sorting. And then once you've separated and sorted, then you can do something with the final product. I think we've got a lot of landfills that are very close to rivers that we should start looking at, and digging them up and pulling everything out that we've put in and start putting it through a process. You know, tidying up that ground, because that ground is connected to our waterways. So yeah, look, I think it's the path forward. It'll definitely be here. If it's not me, it'll be somebody else. So I think you can take that one to the bank, Andrew.
We don't actually have official figures about our recycling in New Zealand.
That's true.
It's all estimates.
Yep.
And the best estimate that I've seen from the Ministry of the Environment is around 25%. So that says at the moment 75% of all our waste is going into landfill.
Yes.
20 years' time, we've got 3 or 4 waste to energy plants. We've got these other remediation plants you just talked about. How much waste do you see going into the ground in 20 years' time?
Oh, only clean fill.
Like,
I think they'll just, to me, the problem is that we've cheapened the cost of treatment by bringing in extra landfills, right? So now they're fighting. That doesn't help fix the recycling world. There needs to be a cost attached to waste. Once there's a cost attached to waste, the higher the cost, the more the ability to recycle.
now this is what you were talking about earlier, weren't you? Like in Germany, it's very expensive to landfill.
Yeah,
there.
you can't take anything to a landfill without it being treated at least twice. And then the cost is huge. 300-400 euro per tonne.
So they're not subsidising you to put waste in the ground.
No, they're not.
They're making it really hard for you to put, and that forces people to think smarter about their waste.
Absolutely. There's a cost attached to waste.
And this is what you were saying before, that we're just way behind the...
Well, it's attached to this, we go out there with this free trade mentality because we're small and we want everyone. So the trade that's coming in free, the moment it's turned into waste, you know, and some of it's turning into waste almost immediately, comes over these borders, it travels on these ships, and it has free entry, non-trade barriers. And the moment it turns we change the term from a good to waste, then the EPA wraps another law around it, which means that it cannot be shipped without permits. That's what creates the waste. The people who own the landfills, if they've bought a $2 billion business based on a $60 or $70 million return in their landfills, they want to keep that rolling because they've paid for it. They've paid for it. They think it's a legislative investment that's going to be protected by the councils, and that's the way we treat our waste. A guy like me comes in and throws an idea out there and almost gets it across the line. I'm a problem that they don't quite know how to manage it. But I've put ideas out there that need to be considered for our environment. If we want New Zealand to be clean and green, then we need to start doing something about it.
When you're not at work, when you're at home, what makes you happy? How do you relax? What brings you joy?
I'd say humour, my kids and my grandkids, seeing them happy.
How many kids have you got?
I've got 5 kids.
How many grandkids?
7 grandkids. And, you know, I was a young father. I probably wasn't the best father, but I was a good provider. And as I'm a young grandfather, I understand probably a little bit better that, you know, I see these couples that are in their 30s having their first child and they've got money, they've sorted, right? They're settled. I didn't realise that when I was a kid. You know, I was 16, I was married at 16 to a woman, and I had my first kid by the time I was 16. So I didn't understand that. I was just going on whatever was happening on the day, right? But as you get a bit older, you learn. So yeah, look, I just want to do whatever I can to push my kids along, make them get out there and learn and do as best as they can. Not sure what will happen, but we'll just keep trying.
You become a better person as you've gotten older.
What's better? I don't know what that word is. I mean, I've always tried to be a good person. Better person?
More well-rounded, more wisdom.
Yeah, I think we all learn every day. And one thing I do notice, and one thing I will say, is that life speeds up. It speeds up, man. These weeks just roll one into the other now, right? And when you're young, it seems so slow. But maybe I've got 20 to 25 summers left. I want to do as much as I can in those 25 summers to achieve as much as I can, right? So,
you're 55.
Yeah.
What do you see yourself in 10 years' time?
Probably be more in a more supporting role for my 2 sons, my sons and my kids, and some of the people that work for us. I'd like to step back maybe half the time, but still be involved, and just keep moving. Yeah, you don't want to stop moving.
So when you step back, what are you going to devote your time to then?
Oh, shit, you know, I probably, I like some of the groups, you know. I occasionally spend a bit of time with one of our staff, Robin, at things like Rotary and community-based activities. Probably like to spend a bit more time, learn a bit more about my culture, Māoridom, learn the language as I get a bit older. Yeah, so there's lots to do.
Thanks for your time, Craig.
Yeah, no, thank you.